Hello and welcome. Welcome to this episode of the Daily Soul Bytes show. I am your host, Bolaabimbolaauthor. This is the show where we interview expert authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs who share their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from Manhattan. Her name is Diane Gilman. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Oh my gosh, I need to be reborn with your voice. That you have the best voice ever. Gorgeous voice. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. I will read a bit about your bio before we start, just so everybody knows who you are. Diane Gilman is an author and a designer. She's most well known for her invention of the middle-aged jean. Her mission goes beyond designing clothing. It's about empowering women to embrace aging with confidence and vitality. Her book, Too Young to Be Old, unfolds the electrifying life story and empowering life lessons she has learned. That's it. Wonderful.
There it is.
Wonderful.
Yep.
I would love to know a bit more about that in a bit, but I first of all want to know, Diane, what did midlife bring to you? Because I know from what you've said to me, midlife is really where your success really began. So I'd love to know more about that.
Well, midlife obviously brought menopause was very challenging. At the same time that I was going through menopause, which was difficult, I also was losing my husband to cancer as a sole caregiver. So I had a lot of decisions to make in midlife. Did I want to go on with what I was doing? I was really heartbroken. And then again, menopause brought really crepey skin, terrible digestion, no sleep, nightmares, hair was falling out. And so I had to become extremely proactive in my life. And I went to anti-aging doctors and learned a lot about nutrition. Oh, and by the way, failed to mention, I gained almost 70 pounds through menopause. So I went from 130 pounds. I don't know what that is in stones or kilograms or anything for you guys, but to 200 pounds. And I remember going to the doctor and he said, I want to weigh you. And I said, I don't want to get weighed. I'm not in the mood. And he said, no, I'm the doctor. You've got to get on the scale. I said, well, I'm keeping my eyes closed. And he pried one eye open and he said, do you see that? He said, you are 1/4 of a pound away from the national definition of obesity. If you want to live your life that way, I'm telling you right now, you're going to have a million health problems that are going to stand in your way of what you want to do. So I actually figured out that I was an emotional eater. I became heavy into pastas and carbs after my husband passed away from cancer. And so once I understood I was an emotional eater, I could handle that. And then I started thinking to myself, this can't be the rest of my life. I've got to get a grip on myself. So I started educating myself in terms of what I needed to do to stay vital. And in the meantime, at about 58 years old, 58 and a half, I had dressed rock and roll stars in denim as a youth in the 60s and the 70s. And suddenly I couldn't wear jeans anymore. And that seemed absurd to me. And I went on a mission to find a jean that would fit a middle-aged body. Couldn't find one. Then thought, don't be ridiculous. Make one for yourself. You're a designer. I had a whole professional sewing team in New York City. I did that. Totally changed my life. And then I thought, if I love wearing this jean so much, and I have such a problem finding a jean in the commercial fashion market, wouldn't millions of women love wearing a jean? And I went to the head of QVC and HSN And it was a woman CEO. She had just come in, and she had been involved with the birth of polo jeans with Ralph Lauren. So I knew she understood jeans. And I said, just give me a chance. And she said, Diane, fitted bottoms are never going to sell on TV. Women need to try stuff on, but I didn't believe that. Because I always bought stuff, took it home, tried it on, and then returned it. So I said, just give me a chance. We sold out. She gave me 1 hour. We sold out. And my brand, DG2, went crazy and skyrocketed. And in the midst of that, I went to the CEO of QVC and said, please, let me do QVC International, and here's the point. Because whether you are a woman eating pasta or fish and chips or schnitzel in Germany or snails in Paris, we are all dealing with the same hormonal changes. And I've got a gene that I had measured from my own menopausal body, and I believe it will fit any woman who's going through that phase of her life and postmenopausal. I said, please, please, please. And give me a country where I speak the language. So the first country was the UK. And we shot to #1. Paris shot to #1. France. Germany, #1. Italy, #1. So it was amazing to me to have my true light bulb moment in fashion at an age when most people had given up on designing. They weren't even in the fashion industry anymore. They'd all dropped out. And then I wrote my book, my first book, Good Jeans, as in Jeans, jeans, and that became a bestseller. Then I wrote my second book, Too Young to Be Old, and subsequently started my podcast, Too Young to Be Old. And that's in, I think, the top 10 percentile for women over 55 on YouTube. So I saw patterns starting, which is everything I dreamt about was happening to me after the age of 50 and after menopause. But we're never taught that as females. We're taught that life is over with. So then my mission, I get diagnosed with breast cancer Christmas Eve of 2017. I have to go through treatment. I come back to TV. I have to tell all of my audiences I'm going away for about a year to save my own life. I come back and we have the biggest day we've ever had. We sell 225,000 jeans in one day in my return show. So I am more than on top. I'm on top of being on top. But I think to myself, okay, you almost just died. And so life is more precious than ever. And you're 76 now. Do you want to do this for the rest of your life? I was never somebody who rested on my laurels. I was always about growing. And when I really thought to myself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? It was help women. I want to become a guiding light. I want to become an advisor. I want to become an advisor by intention, because here's how I'm living my life. And I'm willing to take the risk, because the one thing I'm going to carry over from my youth is I was always a risk taker, and that's how I got where I was with $100 million a year company on just a thought that there should be a gene for women who go through menopause. So I left TV to go into the world of podcasting and authorship, and now I'm going to start my fourth book, which is about aging smarter, living longer, being a modern older woman. So, there's not many of me out there, but those who are out there, who are like-minded like me, I think are as passionate as I am. Older women we're not given the same opportunities. We are not protected in any way. We are not necessarily admired. And we've got to change that point of view of society. That's a big and tall order, but guess what? It is a graying. I know that for sure America is a graying nation. There are more people now, population-wise, over 50 than under 50.
It's the same. It's the same
Yeah,
here in the UK.
what are you going to do with us? And the real truth is the corporate world doesn't necessarily respect us past a certain age. So my feeling is it's the age of the entrepreneur. Do something great. Do something meaningful. Do something that inspires you. And do it from the heart. And honestly, with that kind of heart energy, you really can't fail. Because that's what my gene was. It was I had always been good in design. I'm not saying that I didn't have a name for myself and respected in my profession, but that gene was so personal to me. It gave me back my youth again. I felt like I was a cool girl at the age of 60 because I'm wearing a form-fitting jean and it looks so great and people are paying attention to me and it feels sexy and I feel like I can remember all the events, all the things that would reconnect me to my youth. I'd been wearing a jean. So once I understood that if you do something that really means the world to you, it will probably mean a lot to others too. So that's sort of the ethos I operate by.
Thank you, Diane. I love the mindset that you have. And this is the really powerful difference between those of us who are past the age of 40, 50, 60, who somehow stay healthy, stay happy, stay thriving, and those of us who somehow go downhill. Because the narrative, the conditioning that we receive, whether we're a man, whether we're a woman, is as you age, you lose your health. You lose your vitality. So that narrative is something that we need to become very mindful of as we get older. And we have to stay empowered beings rather than victims. And I love the way your mindset shifted, especially after you lost your husband and you really had to turn things around because you not only had to build a new life, you had to maintain your health at the age of 50 going up. So that mindset is really critical. And I love the way you are inspiring others now. You're sharing your lessons with your books, and you are really beginning to uplift. I love that. And you're really beginning to change that narrative for others as you change it.
I hope so.
It's really important for me to say that because mindset is key. Apart from the book, I would love to know a bit more about your lifestyle, because I know that, as women in our 50s, I'm now in my mid 50s, post menopause, one of the things that really is important is dealing with inflammation, dealing with oxidative stress, what we eat, how we see ourselves, our beliefs, the beliefs that we are holding. That lifestyle is important. And I would love you to share some of your secrets, maybe your affirmations, maybe some of the things that you do that really help you to stay on top of, because the habits that we hold are really key. And yes, I know some of the secrets will be in your book, but it's just a little bit of tips as to how you are now too young to be old. I'd love to hear.
Well, in your head, you can always stay too young to be old. So the first thing you need to do is stop telling yourself you're too old. If somebody wants you to do something, you may have to do it in a modified manner. But don't turn around ever, and I never do that, and say, oh, I'm too old to do that. Oh, no, I'm too old. Oh, why should I start a new life? I'm so old already. I lead a very intentional purpose-driven life. And it's interesting, and I believe in America, they just did a scientific study and said that the people that challenge their minds and are in a job that allows them to think and be creative will get dementia, or not much later in life, or not get dementia at all, compared to people that do a very rote, I don't have to think about it, I hate where I am, like a factory job. So the first thing to me is ask yourself a question. Do you love what you're doing? And if you do not, and if you do not feel inspired every day, stimulated every day, start thinking about making a change. It is literally going to save your life, to recraft your life. Cancer had a lot to do with it. My schedule was terrible on TV. I literally commuted to Europe at least 2 round trips, if not 3 a month. So I was doing an international business, but the trick, the upside and the downside with tele-retail, QVC, HSN, Home Shopping Network, which is a sister channel in America, is there can only be you. You don't have substitutes. So everybody wants you at once. So I led a highly stressful life. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, the doctor knew me, believe it or not, from watching tele-retail and buying my jeans. And I said, why me? Why cancer? I eat right. I exercise. I don't get it. There's no cancer in my family. And she said, stress. You lead an incredibly stressful life. She said, I can see it. You know, you go on TV and you're expected to sell 50, 60, 70, 80,000 jeans in one day. And you're hearing about it all the time in your ear, like, oh, you're not selling enough, or the viewership just spiked because you mentioned something, mention it again, and terrible hours, working in the studio till 3 a.m., getting back to the hotel, taking makeup off, trying to get to sleep, but having to get up at 6 a.m. and be back in the studio and work until 11 p.m. So at a certain point, I had to make a hard stop and say to myself, okay, my body is not the same as it was when I started tele-retail at 45 years old, 47 years old. This is not good for me. I don't feel healthy. I've just been through really strong chemotherapy and tons of radiation and an operation or two. I've got to find something to do with my life that's more appropriate to healing my body and become more productive through my brain, and the fact that I'm very comfortable speaking to the public in front of a camera, rather than having to physically go fly to a studio all the time and do all these hours. That was a tough decision. Eating correctly, you know, as you get older, and the thing is, what I really find all the time is I have people who are 30, 40 years younger than me saying, you shouldn't do that, you should do that, or you should want that. How would you know? You're not 78 years old. It's different over here. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's worse. I'm just saying it's totally different. So I found crazy. I gained almost 40 pounds during chemotherapy from all the chemicals. I had incredible water retention from steroids. So I had to lose that weight because all that water in my system was bearing down on my blood pressure and blah, blah, blah. Then I found out that had also triggered cholesterol. They wanted to give me a bunch of pills. I was done with taking Western medicine. I wanted to see how healthy my body actually was in my 70s. So I said, no, I have high cholesterol. I'll take care of it and change my diet. I have high blood pressure. I'll take care of it and change my job. I now have perfect blood pressure. I now have no cholesterol, perfect cholesterol. So I love eating really creamy foods like cheesecake and soups with cream in them. And I gave it all up. I made diet a purpose in my life and an intention. I am veering as close as I can get to being a vegetarian at least 4 days a week. That's really working. I lost all the weight and a little bit more. And so I will say that you are the expert of you. And don't let, as you age as a female, you are going to have to find your own solutions. Yes, you can go into the classical Western medicine medical community. I went on hormone replacement when I went through menopause. That solved a ton of problems, but the doctor said maybe that was what brought on breast cancer. Who knows? But I enjoyed it while I was on it, believe me. It was like turning back the hands of time. You are going to have to become your own expert and your own self-advocate. And you know what? Part of it is very entertaining, honestly. Who do you like more than yourself? So how are you going to get that good sleep? That was another big thing for me. Sleep at night. And then an image. I mean, when I came back on TV, I was more like Annie Lennox without looking as good as Annie Lennox looked, with 1/4 inch white hair. So I now had to recraft a whole public image that my female audience and community would be inspired by, would be fascinated by, would want to know how you do it, because it's actionable. It's all attainable. What I found, which was really fascinating, was even where I got all of my beauty done in New York, very famous salon, the John Barrett salon. 99% of their clients, and they had a lot of famous clients like Martha Stewart, Hillary Clinton. None of these women wanted to be authentic. That's why they all have beautiful blonde hair with all this balayage and streaks. So I went against that. I didn't want those chemicals next to my brain. I didn't want any more chemicals than I already had going through chemo. So I decided to go natural. And I think that was a good decision, an honest decision. I am authentic when I talk about my aging journey, but best hairdressers in the country had no idea how to take care of white hair. There was no white hair shampoo on the market. The whole beauty regime of being older, you kind of have to do it. You know, it's almost like you're in the middle of a jungle and there's no path. You have to hack out a path for yourself that is perfect for you. White hair works for me, but I'm one of the only women ever in that salon that is not dyeing their hair. And so sometimes the road to authenticity is a little bit lonely, but don't let it daunt you. And have fun with it.
I do think, though, I will say, though, that there's, when it comes to authenticity, it's a very personal thing. And what will work for one person, and I think it's just important to be honest with self. What makes you feel best about yourself?
And
That is what I tend
powerful.
to think.
Yeah.
And powerful, yeah. So if white hair for you is something that makes you feel powerful, that's really important for you to do that. But I think it's important to allow every single person to express themselves in the way that they feel confident, they feel powerful,
Yes.
um, and it's not one size fits all. And I always, and I think women come under a lot of pressure as we get older. You must look this way, you must not wear makeup, you must not do this. And I
Oh,
think it's important for us to, I do want to say that each and every woman, each and every person has to express themselves in the way that they feel good about
but
themselves, and
you
that is it.
don't you need support.
Oh
Like,
yes. Oh yes. That's important.
found that
That's
in the
important.
beauty community, so many women drop off the map and just give up by the time they're 60 that even my beauty experts had not a lot of experience with women my age wanting to stay glamorous. I will also say that I took my diet and made that an adjunct and a partner to my whole beauty regime. So I try to eat salmon 2 or 3 times a week because the omega-3 fatty acids
Mm,
are really good for me. I
okay.
decided to test the whole inside out beauty market and take vitamins because as you age, you can't necessarily absorb the amount of vitamins from food you once could. So I studied a lot of it and I activated it. There
Mm.
was the big point. I took facts that I thought I could work with, and then I said, okay, next step, how do we do it? So, something
Okay. The supplements are key. Supplements are key, I think. That's
totally.
one of the things because I also take omega-3 and biotin because there is,
Oh,
the air
yeah.
thinning out, all of that stuff. So health is important, supplements is important. It's important, and I do appreciate you sharing some of those things that you do because those habits are really key to support us as we get older. And I do want to know more about moving forward for you, because I know you're doing lots of stuff coming up. You've got a fourth book you're doing, you've got some shows coming up. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing now, because there's no stopping you, is there?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Where a lot of people go wrong with aging is they see these years as throwaway years. They're not worth anything. You're towards the end of your life, although maybe you're not. My friend Iris Apfel, who was called the accidental icon and became super famous at about 85, lived to be 103. So you've got to assume that if you live right and your intentions are you want to go to a great age and you're really treasuring life, you probably will get that opportunity. So the first thing, and I'm sorry it's still in the plastic, but I just got it. First time ever, people, I am a cover girl at 78 years old. Yeah, that's right. Do Mode magazine. And the whole article inside is my life story, but it's also about being a female author and how I find purpose and inspiration out of writing. So, two things. When I left tele-retail, I was on there for 30 years, and I would say for 28 of those 30 years, I was the number one fashion personality nationally in America and then internationally. I was in fashion for 50 years, but when I sold my company, full disclosure, my payment for that came off the privilege of they would not have me as a competitor. So I could not go back into fashion, which was fine for me. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? How precious, how sacred do you think every moment is? Well, if you've had a mortality-based disease like I did, you know you're not here by coincidence. I didn't just come back to lounge around and, buy status handbags and loafers. I knew that the universe had a plan for me, but I had to discover it and the purpose. And I decided to be a champion for my generation of women. I knew that I had skills in speaking, public speaking, and I wondered if I could translate those to the written page. And then a group came to me called Women Who Thrive, who I believe are based out of London. But it's an international women's group. Every year they choose 20 women, but I think it boils down to about 10, who want to write their life story about the most challenging thing that's ever happened to them, the trauma in their life as a female, how they got over it, how they processed it and got through it. So when I went, I started writing. And then they came to me and said, we publish a magazine that comes out at the launch of the book, which will be June 20th on Amazon. We'd like you to be on the cover. So now I'm a cover girl for the second time. 58 years old. I want to get into authorship. Now, the interesting thing is, all during my TV career, my fan base, which was about 650,000 women strong, they were great support to me during cancer, called me the Queen of Jeans because I invented that middle-aged jean and it made them feel so much better. But recently, somebody said, you're not the Queen of Jeans, you're the lighthouse, because you seem to want to spread light and enlightenment and inspiration and joy to all the women around you. And I was very honored by that. I thought it was hilarious, but I loved it at the same time. And yeah, that's my purpose, to do good. I want my legacy to be happiness and fulfillment for women who perhaps were not given the advantages I had, of the advantage of talent, the advantage of looks, the advantage of being able to marry those together in the fashion industry and then in the television industry. So this is purely, in the simplest of terms, my time to give back. And I'm going to give back to my female community.
Oh, that's beautiful. And how do you work with your clients? Is it through the book or do you have courses?
I don't have clients. I do my podcast. I do 2 podcasts. The title of my book is my podcast, first one, Too Young to Be Old. And then every Thursday, we have Fashion Thursdays, because a lot of the women who followed me on QVC and HSN want to hear from me. How do I do it? How do I style my hair at my age? How do I do my makeup? How do I dress? What colors? What items? So in a way, I delved right back. I just jumped right back into fashion again, but in a more informational mode.
Beautiful.
So I'm kind of busy.
I love
and I
it.
do a lot of podcasts. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you for joining me today. I loved it.
It's a pleasure.
And before we go, I do want to share my book. This is the Daily Soul Bytes book, which is now available online. This is called Daily Soul Bytes. I wrote this in 2020, and it's really containing higher perspectives of the higher mind. And this is really about how we become much more familiar with these higher, unconditionally loving perspectives of higher self. And we can become much more aligned to them and familiar to them, and they will guide our decisions, guide our behaviors. And this is how we get our best outcomes. So this book contains 31 nuggets on different topics like love, compassion, joy, forgiveness, driving, day-to-day activities that we do. And I share higher perspectives in these different topics that allow us to get really acquainted with our own perspectives within us, with that infinite wisdom, infinite intelligence within us, because this is what drives our best outcomes in our day-to-day. So this is now available anywhere books are sold online. It's now a bestseller. I will encourage my audience to leave a review when they get their copy. And I also invite you to subscribe to this show, Daily Soul Bites Show, new episodes every Wednesday on YouTube, also on Spotify and all the other audio platforms where you watch your podcast. And I do love that you've joined me today. And I want to thank Diane again for being a guest today. And I wish you all the wonderful success, Diane, going forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I thank my audience for joining me again today. And I look forward to seeing you again next week on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bites Show. Bye-bye.